at the housing on the Canadian side of Niagara Falls versus the American side. Very interesting. On the Canadian side, 3047 St. Patrick Avenue, you can get a tiny shack for $549,900. On the American side, you get a much bigger standalone home for $164,000.
Wow.
$549 on the Canadian side, $164 on the American side, both Niagara Falls. Why the discrepancy, Housing Minister?
He spouts about numbers. He talks about housing affordability. When it comes to housing supply, he's voted against measures to increase housing supply. When it comes to housing affordability and measures to help home buyers, he's voted against them.
So we've established that on the American side, house prices are roughly half of what they are on the Canadian side. I've asked why multiple times. It can't be population. They have 10 times the people. It can't be land mass. They have less land than we do. The answer is that government gatekeepers block construction. He claims that he's doing something about that, but he has been in this role, and his prime minister has been in this job for 8 years. If they were going to solve the problem, they would have by now, but everything is...
My kids are leaving Southern Ontario simply because they're going broke. They say, Dad, we can't handle it out here anymore. We can never afford a house out here. The cost of living is through the roof. Small bungalows built in the 50s and 60s in Toronto and Vancouver are still selling for over $1 million or more. So what will it take to make home ownership more affordable for Canadians, especially young Canadians?
Well, it's very simple. Build homes and bring down interest rates. It's not a complicated formula. We have too few homes and too high interest rates. That's why it's expensive. So let's just unpack the problem here. First of all, it's not a global problem. It's not a problem it's not a long-term problem either. It's a here and now problem. Housing was cheap 8 years ago before Trudeau. You could buy a house for an average house, 450 grand when Harper left office. The average mortgage payment on a new home was $1,400. Now, the average house costs almost $800,000 and the average mortgage payment is $3,200. The average down payment has doubled as well. The average rent has doubled. And Canada has one of the worst housing bubbles in the world. Vancouver is ranked 3rd in the world for the inaffordability of housing, ahead of Singapore, London, England, Manhattan, and countless other places with more money, more people, and less land. We have the fewest houses per capita in the G7, even though we have the most land to build on. It doesn't make any sense. How is it possible that we have expensive housing? We have more land, lumber, and labor than anyone else. The answer is government gatekeepers block housing construction. We're ranked 64th in the world for the time it takes to get a building permit. It takes 7 to 10 years to get zoning approved for a new house, a new community. So this is municipal, but here's what a Poilievre government will do. I will demand municipalities speed up and lower the cost of building permits, or I'll cut their infrastructure budgets. I'll give a building bonus to those municipalities that speed up permitting, and I'll bring in fines for those who block building. I'll require every federally funded transit station be surrounded by and even have building over top of by high density apartments so young people and seniors can live right next to the bus and train. I'll sell off 6,000 federal buildings that we don't need and turn that into housing. I'm going to sell off brownfields that are not being used and turn that into housing as well. And I'll support the trades so we get more of the people that can actually build the house. In other words, we're going to get the gatekeepers out of the way and bring homes people can afford. And then on interest rates, does the federal government set interest rates directly? No, but its monster deficits put upward pressure on rates. When you balance the budget, that tends to bring interest rates down. And so I'm going to get rid of the deficits so that rates can get back down to a lower level so that mortgage payments are more affordable.
Pierre Poilievre, leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, thanks so much for joining us today from our provincial capital in Edmonton.
Wonderful. Great to be with you, my friend. It's a real pleasure. I can't wait to get down to Lethbridge to see you in person. And let's keep building the common sense of the common people and bring it home.
The housing crisis in Canada has cast a dark shadow over the aspirations of the younger generation. As property prices continue to soar, it becomes increasingly apparent that owning a home is becoming a distant dream for many young Canadians. The exorbitant costs of real estate have created a formidable barrier, making it incredibly challenging for the new generation to step onto the property ladder. Without concerted efforts to address this crisis, young people may find themselves locked out of the housing market, struggling to secure stable and affordable housing in an increasingly competitive landscape.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of Speak Your Mind. We're here live, ready to give you guys our following topic about housing. Is housing an impossible dream, something completely out of your reach, or is it something that you just have to work hard to get? I am not by myself, but I find myself with my panel, Mrs. Audrey, who finds herself here also, Miss Audrey, and also Pastor Justin. How are you guys doing?
Good evening, Pastor. Well, thank you, and welcome again to another episode of Speak Your Mind.
Very interesting topic today, Pastor Giovanni, and pleasure to be here with all of you.
And if you watch us right now and you kind of want to chime in, you want to give us your opinion, you want to talk to us, you want to speak your mind, you can definitely do so through the numbers that appear on your screen. Pastor Justin, if we can give it out, the person can call us. They can even text us on WhatsApp, right?
Exactly. You can call us at 877-785-8700, or we have our WhatsApp, which is available for you to leave your comment, to leave your opinion, and you can call us. You can send us a message at the WhatsApp at 437-233-9815.
Ms. Audrey, we also have a survey going on right now. This person, what do they need to do so that they can join in on our poll and chime in?
So, Pastor, as always, like we have here is our Telegram poll. They can go ahead and scan the QR code as it appears on their screen and answer the following question: buying a house an impossible dream, or you do just have to work hard for it? You can go ahead and vote, and towards the middle or end of our show, we're going to go ahead and announce the results.
And we have different things to show you guys, especially related to this topic, like our following video about the biggest housing bubble of all time. Different analysts on risks in Canada's real estate market. And you probably go, well, what is this exactly? I would like to show you guys a small graph before we go to our first video. Let's see if we can fill up the screen with our first image. One of the graphs that we pulled up about housing, especially here in Canada. So if you see here, Canada versus the USA, medium home sales price. If you see Canada in red, over the years has gone up 127%. While in the United States, it has gone up over the years 36%. Let's see if we go to the next graph. I would love to show you guys the difference between housing in Toronto and Vancouver. The average cost of a one-bedroom unit in June 2023, Vancouver, $2,945. And here in Toronto, Toronto's very own, $2,572. That is a lot of money. Pastor Justin, do you see yourself more of a Toronto man or more of a Vancouver kind of person, Pastor Justin?
From the numbers that I just saw right now, Pastor Giovanni, I'm definitely sticking to Toronto, although it's still pretty expensive, but Toronto wins this one for me.
Mrs. Audrey?
Yes, Pastor, I actually have someone that commented during our time where we went to do the interviews downtown. Actually, they gave a comment and they wanted to share. So I'm going to go ahead and read it. That says, Bailey says like this: I moved here 2 years ago. I arrived in December of 2021. Rent was pretty cheap. I stayed in a place that was $2,800, and currently it went up to $4,000. And you can see the difference in that. I still live in the same place. It was not something that I wanted, but however, it's where I find myself in the situation. And she said that the inflation was a surprise for her. Even if Tim Hortons, also we noticed the coffee in price has increased. And for her, she mentioned it is a dream to own a house, because currently the way the situation is, it is just out of reach.
You know what happens when somebody starts touching into your Tim Hortons. You can call us right now, 877-785-8700. Let's go to our first video, and when we come back, we'll start answering your phone calls. We'll be right back.
Canada could be sitting on the biggest housing bubble of all time. That's according to one strategist who's warning that once it bursts, Canada could be thrown into a deeper recession than any have forecasted. Let's bring in Philip Colmar. He's a managing partner and global strategist at MRB Partners. He's coming to us today from Belleville, Ontario. Phil, good to see you. Walk us through the big takeaway here of what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, the key here is we've been monitoring it for some time, but the Canadian housing market it does have excessive house prices relative to income. So when you're looking at that big headline about a housing bubble, what you really want to do is compare house prices to incomes. And Canada for some time has been escalating on that front, particularly even before the pandemic. It was last decade. It had a cheap interest rate environment or low interest rate environment owing to really problems south of the border. After their housing bust, they went through deleveraging, which meant they dampened down consumption and inflation, allowed interest rates to be very low. Bank of Canada followed suit, even though the crisis wasn't here. And that seduced a lot of home buyers into buying homes at using those interest rates to effectively buy homes, and house prices to incomes surged. And through the pandemic, we got it again and kicked it further up. So we do have pretty excessive house prices to incomes, and I'll turn it back. But certainly underneath the surface, when you're looking at a housing bubble, the things you really do worry about is when you not only have excessive home prices, but excessive leverage backing the whole system. And Canada kind of is really off the charts on that front. And that's really where the concern comes in, is on the leverage to income ratios is way north of where the US was at its peak. Makes the US look somewhat prudent, actually. So it really has been seduced by low interest rates.
Is a bursting of the bubble inevitable, Phil?
Yeah, I would say it's pretty inevitable. It's pretty. I mean, when you're dealing with these kind of excesses, you're really hoping that home prices stay capped while incomes kind of grow for a long period of time, and hopefully interest rates don't rise. That's a hard thing for policymakers to orchestrate, particularly when we're dealing with greater inflationary dynamics and higher bond yields than we have in the past. And so, that has to occur for a number of years, given the extensive nature of the bubble that we have now. And so the things you'd want to look at, I wouldn't say it's necessarily imminent, but the things you do want to look at is if mortgage rates are going to rise again or unemployment starts to rise. Those are the things that really bring it home to roost. And we got a taste of that last year. A lot of people before the pandemic had been switching over to floating. They got nailed on the floating when floating started to rise. And then at best, you tend to have a 5-year mortgage rate being reset. So after a year, every year you get call it 20% of it gets reset. So it's not the US where you get a 30-year fixed. So mortgage burdens do become quite astronomical. Affordability is bad right now, but debt servicing of those mortgages is pretty excessive. And so last year we saw when mortgage rates went up, we saw about a 10 to 15% haircut on house prices across the nation. But I think that's the taste of what's to come. Mortgage rates have started to rise again, largely due to the US. But keep an eye on there. And if unemployment rises, we get to the next recession, then we're going to see a down leg for sure.
Yeah. Any possible timeline you're looking at here?
Yeah, the thing that I was talking about and bringing it home to roost is I think people made a miscalculated bet on the U.S. about it going into imminent recession, and that brought down bond yields. And U.S. rates are in some way, shape, or form tied to United States rates. And so when people unwound their recession bets or their imminent recession bets, we started to see new highs in the 10-year Treasury south of the border. But it drove up mortgage rates here, bond yields here, which drove up mortgage rates here. And that's the risk point. So that brought it home to roost, where if that keeps going, then look for a very near-term bursting, so to speak, of the bubble. Otherwise, we're looking towards a recession. That's probably, you might get another year out of it, but then we're looking into the next recession. And of course, Canada, although I think the US would go through a mild recession, given its household sector is in good shape after going through a bust and deleveraging, Canada is going to face sort of what the US did, a very deep deleveraging cycle, quite a pronounced recession. And unfortunately, the currency will take it on the chin too. So you'll end up with a lower Canadian dollar as part of the reflationary mechanism.
Phil Colmar joining us from Belleville, managing partner, global strategist at MRB Partners. Thanks for taking a bit of time for CTV today on this story. Much appreciated.
No, thank you for having me.
437-233-9815 is the number you can call us, or even send us a message through WhatsApp. I think we have Matthew LeBeau who sent in his comment. Let's see if we fill up the screen right now and read it and share it with you guys. You guys can definitely continue doing that also. So his comment goes like this. Matthew from Toronto. The problem is right now in certain parts of Canada, notably Greater Toronto area and surrounding environs, the housing market is overheated and insane. This area is going to suffer what the USA suffered in 2008 and 2009. It is a massive housing demand bubble. Houses are being snapped up way previous market prices in a frenzy. I'd say it's about the same as buying a house in the USA. Must be able to come up with a suitable down payment, have good credit history, and enough income history to afford the house you are looking for. I don't know if we have the image. Let's see if you guys in the back can put the image of what Pierre said about the difference in housing. It's the two houses. Perfect. I want you guys to pay attention. One house on the American side is $164,900. And on the left side, the same, what Pierre referred to it as, a shack for $549,900. Pastor Justin, this person, Matthew, who sent in his comment, he said that it's almost the same now, from 169,000 to 549,000. That's a big, big gap. But this person can continue sending in their comments, showing us and speaking their mind through our app or through Facebook, through YouTube. Right, Pastor Justin?
Exactly. You that are watching us on YouTube, you that are watching us on Facebook, and you want to leave your opinion, you want to leave your comments, speak your mind. This is the show where you're able to say what you want to say. And I have some comments here, Pastor Giovanni, Audrey. I want you to pay attention. It says like this. Suzanne Boyke says, save your money like we all did. She believes that it is possible to buy a home. Save your money like we all did. Get your priorities straight like we did. And instead of buying all the toys, designer clothes, the latest technology, save up. Prioritize your money so that you can truly afford to buy a home. And I have another comment from Therese. It says, every Canadian that starts a family should have a piece of land to call their home. The big companies are taking all the land for profit, and Canadians are left struggling while the rich are getting richer. And she says here that it's very sad.
Now, Mrs. Audrey, this person who can send us, or if they send us a comment, they can continue doing so through the number that appears on the screen, right?
Correct, Pastor. They can call 877-785-8700 or send a message to our WhatsApp. They can text us at 437-233-9815. And not to forget, we have our Telegram poll that they can go ahead and join and vote so that we can give the results here on our show.
Let's see if we have that comment to pull up. Barry LeBeau, it's a comment. And on the bottom, it says, if I'm not mistaken, real estate agent. I'll wait for the production to put it on the screen. Please, if we can do so. Thank you. It says like this. This is my 54th year in real estate, and I live and work predominantly in Toronto. I have lived through the booms and busts of the 1970s, the 1980s, and again, the 1990s. We have never experienced anything like this. The prices are like a runaway train that is out of control, and prices started to rise around 96 with no end in sight up to 2023. And today, there is nothing on the horizon to slow that train, nor do we foresee the end of the tracks well into 2024. Let's see if I have Crystal on the line. Let's see if we can connect there. Crystal, do you hear me?
Hi,
Hello.
Pastor. Yes, I can hear you. Good evening.
Good evening, Ms. Crystal. We're asking everybody the following question about housing, about buying a house. Do you think it's something that is impossible, it's completely out of your reach, or do you think it's something that you just have to work hard for, persevere, and you're able to get right away?
I think personally it's something that you just have to work hard for. I don't think any dream is invalid. So buying a house is a valid dream for anyone. So you probably just have to work hard and smart.
Now, Ms. Crystal, what would you say to those people? Like one of the comments, if I'm not mistaken, that Pastor Justin read, I think it was Suzanne, that anybody born and raised in Canada should have a piece of that land, yet it's as if they don't. It's as if the rich kind of trample over that. And the hard workers, Ms. Crystal, what do we say to them?
Say that again, Pastor. I didn't get the question.
The people who work hard, the people who born and raised here in Canada, what do you say to those hard workers who for years have been grinding out, for years have been working hard, and still, unfortunately, don't have a penny to their name?
Well, I think that is something that they would probably have to, I would say, take up with the government, because in that regard, there should be some sort of coverage for individuals that are working. So retirement plan or something that is going to ensure that the basic things such as having a house, especially when you get to a certain age, like your retirement age where you're about maybe 60, 65, there probably should be some plan for citizens or immigrants in Canada to ensure that if you, let's say you have worked for a certain amount of years, you should have some plan, financial plan that is going to ensure that you're giving a house. That is just my thought. But on the other hand, I think individuals should probably, most people don't start saving for a house, I would say, at the right time. Most people probably start saving for a house when it seems like it's almost too late, when you have too many other things that are inconveniencing financially. So at that point, saving for a house almost seems like it's impossible. So I think the earlier you start thinking about saving for a house, the better for you.
Ms. Crystal, have you already started saving for your house?
As a matter of fact, I'm going to start from next year. I'm actually just going to create a separate budget for buying a house.
Nice. Perfect, Ms. Crystal. Best wishes to you. Good luck. God bless. Thank you so much for speaking your mind. Have a good night.
Thank you, Pastor. Good night.
785, if I'm not mistaken, is the number. 877-785-8700. Pastor Justin, do we have any more comments that we can read?
Yes, we do. We actually have one here from Mr. Richard Corbett. He says like this: who cares? I make what is considered great money, and I will never own a house in this market. Audrey, I believe there's people that it's not whether they can afford it or not. I think it's whether they want to buy one or not. I have another comment right here from Gina Dees that says like this: with inflation, gas prices, and the cost of groceries these days, you have to already have money saved or come from money to buy a house these days. Audrey, do you have any comments?
We do. We have Barry that actually said that for him, the developers are controlling the market. Although they say it is a free market, it is not what he has perceived. He's 64 years old. He has lived here in Canada, but yet at this day and age, he is not able to even own a home, and he thinks it's out of his hands because lending rates, for one, is out of control. And he says that government and big business need to change things, or there will be a big problem with people on the streets. I think home ownership was a dream at once, but it was more accessible at one time. As of now, it is not. And we see this as well for many millennials that we asked as well on the streets of Toronto, downtown. We also did this survey. We asked many people, and for them, it was out of their hands. They were saying that it is probably more convenient for them to rent rather than own a home because of the current situation.
And now let's go to this following video that shows us about Canada's housing crisis and how, unfortunately, it's been dramatically getting worse. We'll be right back.
Well, several housing advocates and real estate experts came together to urge the Trudeau government to build more rental units and make them more affordable to Canadians. They outlined 10 recommendations for doing so. Joining us now is one of the authors of this new report, Mike Moffat. He's also founding director with the Place Center at the Smart Prosperity Institute. Thanks so much for joining us today, Mike.
No, thank you for having me.
So when it comes to Canada's housing crisis, how much of a solution is rental housing in your eyes?
Well, it's a big part of the solution. That rental housing makes up over a third of the housing market, and it tends to be the third that gets to be under the biggest stress. It's got the highest proportion of people living on fixed incomes, lower income Canadians. So when we have a housing crisis, it's often renters that get hit first.
So how big is the gap right now between the rental stock that we have and the rental stock that we need?
Well, the CMHC says that we need 5.8 million to build 5.8 million homes over the next 7 years. If we apply that with third rule, that's about 2 million rental units. And to put that into context, Canada only built 570,000 rental units in the last 30 years. So we need to build about 2 million in the next 7. So, this is going to take a wartime efforts to get some shovels in the ground to really attack this rental crisis.
Yeah. Okay. So what are some of the roadblocks or the bottlenecks that you've found when it comes to actually getting some of these buildings built?
Well, there's a few things. So labor shortages, for instance. So this report recommends both a workforce planning strategy, but also changes to federal immigration programs so we can get in more skilled workers. We also have a lot of great apartment buildings that simply aren't being built, that they just don't pencil in, particularly with higher interest rates. So we have a number of recommendations in here how the federal government can remove the GST, HST on new rental construction, can put in some tax incentives like we had back in the 60s and 70s, and change how CMHC financing works. And we need to change the approvals process, and that's across all three orders of government, that there are, again, thousands of fantastic projects that are sitting on the CMHC's desk just waiting for finance and insurance approvals. If we can get those through the system, we can really start to attack this problem.
Yeah, it's interesting, that sort of bureaucracy of building. You've proposed a couple of ideas of ways to fast track that too, in the sense of coming up with designs that are pre-approved, that you don't really need to take through that process multiple times. You could just get that building built.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something we did back in the 1940s after World War II, and we needed to house all of our veterans and families, that the CMHC had a catalog of pre-approved designs. We're suggesting they should bring that back, but for apartment buildings. And what that would do is if a builder or developer wants to build one of those, they could have their application fast-tracked because the CMHC's already approved the building. So that takes out a large portion of the step. And that's what we feel that we need to do, that we just need to find ways to streamline processes and make them more productive, so we're not doing the same thing over and over and over.
How hopeful are you that it's possible to streamline some of these processes? Because when you talk about all those, multiple layers of government and all of the groups that need to be involved, I imagine just getting everybody together in the same room would be a challenge and would take a lot of time.
It is a big coordination problem, absolutely. And, we feel like we've started that work by bringing together both industry and groups like the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness. And we need to see the federal government start to bring these groups together. And they've done so on healthcare. They've done so on childcare. We think it's now time to do this on housing.
I wonder, are there risks to, affordability? If you're needing to find ways to make things more affordable, government money is going into different directions, in terms of investing in the housing market. That money is coming from somewhere. It's coming from taxpayers. Maybe it ends up, keeping house prices elevated if it can keep demand in there. Are you concerned about any sort of the risks?
Well, you certainly are always worried about unintended consequences. And, a large part of this plan isn't about government money, but trying to figure out how to unlock private capital, that we are going to need over $1 trillion of investment in the sector. And that's not going to come from government. That's going to come from investors and the business community. We are going to need investments in social housing. And the report makes a number of recommendations how the government can do this in fairly inexpensive ways. Now, this will cost some money. It's not free. But if the government designs this well, it can do so in a way that doesn't significantly increase the deficit and debt.
Mike, always great to get your
437-233-9815. You can give us a call right now or send us a message through WhatsApp. Pastor Justin, do we have more people sending us messages or sending in their comments?
Yes, we do actually, Pastor Giovanni. I have here Mariano Mitchell that says like this: our daughter and son-in-law live with us so that they can save to buy their own home. They have about $70,000 saved, but will be dead before they have enough, with $200,000 houses these days being priced at $700,000. It will be very impossible for them to even buy a home. And then I have another one from Kate that says like this: a lot needs to change. Real estate needs monitoring from someone who doesn't benefit either way. Also, I don't think the realtor selling a house should be allowed to come up with the value. Also, enticing bidding wars and all the other sneaky ways that work. This is from Kate, Burley, and Audrey. I believe you have more comments as well.
Yes, someone actually sent a message here on our Facebook, and Eric says like this, wow, and I thought the American housing was expensive compared to here in Canada. And that's something that we hear a lot, right? A lot of people compare the US to how it is here currently in Canada. And we see that the housing situation is the same. I personally know someone that has lived in the same place. They're in the US, in California, and they actually have been living there for over 10 years, renting a place. And a thought has come to mind about them, even if it is even possible for them to, if all the money that they have spent, renting this place, if it was even enough to value even a home. And it was something that they were able to eventually own a house. But again, we come into play where mismanaging money. So again, there was someone, if I'm not mistaken, that mentioned that everybody should be able to be wise with their money, to be able to have a house.
And I think we also have Anastasia from Vancouver who sent in her message. I think we have it on the screen if we can get it prepared. Anastasia from Vancouver who sent in her message. She says like this: guys, I live in Vancouver, mainland, and the real estate prices make me cry. The prices are beyond the level of reasonable, and houses prices come from $1 million and all the way up to whatever. Rich people from China and Punjab have been raising the value of local properties prices by over offering the initial price tags. Now, you literally have to be a drug dealer, investor, a businessman, or a top CEO to be able to afford that. Middle-class families are still able to take a mortgage. However, that will be for a remote, small townhouse somewhere in the end of geography. Anastasia, a little bit more vocal, but speak your mind. No, we have somebody on the line also. Let's see if we can connect them now. If I'm not mistaken, hello, do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Question, what do you think about the possibility, of buying a house? Do you think it's an impossible dream, or do you think it's just something that anybody can work hard to achieve?
Well, I don't want to say it's impossible, but working hard is not good enough, because there's millions of people that today they're working hard. There's people that they're working 80 hours, 90 hours, and they're having to give back their house to the bank. So people need to honestly work smart. And I wanted to even throw this out there, that the worst thing about all this inflation and housing, this is just the beginning. Prices are still going to be going up. We see, I believe the picture that was shown earlier in the show said Toronto's at about $2,600 for one bedroom. Soon that's going to go up to $3,000, maybe even $4,000 for one bedroom. And that's the crazy thing about it.
Now, have you only been here in Canada? Have you ever been in another country? Like, to compare, no?
Yeah, I've spent most of my life between Canada and more in the US, and there's a big difference. There's a really big difference. Things in the US, first off, the conversion rate is different, but things in the US, I found it more affordable, more, I don't want to say easier to get things, but you can plan things out. And I think in the US, it was a lot better in terms of prices.
It's interesting that it's interesting that you say that, because we had Pierre, he was speaking about these two images of two houses, one in the United States that was at $169,000, and a house that was here in Canada for about $549,000. What are your thoughts on that?
It's ridiculous. I mean, Canada is the second largest country in the world. We have so much land here, and it's like most of the land is still underdeveloped. So I think that is ridiculous that it's almost triple, even quadruple the price of the house.
And now in your case, let's say there's a hardworking family, somebody who everybody in their family works, they're trying to get by, they're trying to go forward. Do you think it's basically they'd be lying to themselves saying they can afford a house, or do you think they need to take other measures to get there?
I think there has to be other measures. Now, I believe we live in a society where one income is not enough. If you're just getting one income, unless your one income is 6 figures, there's people even 6 figures that are struggling. But the reality is, I believe we need more than one income. And for a family to do it, if they're all working hard, they just need to be on the same page and understand that together they're stronger. But it can't be, you know, division and, oh, I don't want to pay this, but you have to know what you're getting yourself into, because most mortgages are 30 years, and that's a big commitment.
Thank you so much for speaking your mind with us. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Now let's see what the streets of Toronto have to say about buying a house here in Canada. We'll be right back. A call, whether that be 877-785-8700 or through WhatsApp. You can send us a message, 437-233-9815. We did some interviews in the streets of Toronto, and we'd love to show you guys their opinions. Do we have it ready or not yet? Let's go for it.
Buying a house, is it an impossible dream, or you just have to work hard for it?
Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Oh, unless you're gifted like down payment money, it's not happening.
Buying a house, it used to be something a little bit easier. More with time, it's becoming harder and harder. And it's becoming like, depends on what's your profession and how much is your income. Like, it becomes like something like, yeah, a little bit, it will be a dream for the next generations.
Given the current times in Ontario, it would be an impossible dream. Reason being is it's ridiculously, outlandishly unaffordable. Given the current times, it would be mindful to purchase it outright compared to taking out a mortgage. Because when you're taking out a mortgage now, your interest rate on that is going to be more than your principal. So given how much years you have on it, it's something that you're locked into, not going to be able to pay it off. Meanwhile, that deed belongs to the bank. And then if you cannot keep doing your good deeds, it belongs to the bank, or you already know the deal. So it would make it impossible for a renter now, even wanting to get into that loop now, given the fact that it's very difficult to rent in this current times. And if you're trying to save now to make that jump into purchasing a home, good luck with your down payment, because it's suggested to have 2 individuals and close to half upfront.
Well, you just have to work hard for it. And with the economy and everything keep, rising, costs of living, etc. Yeah, it is a dream, but if you work hard, it's possible.
It's not impossible. I mean, like living in Toronto, there's a lot of opportunities. You do have to you have to know the right person to lead you to the resources you need. And, education is good here. It could be the best. It might even be the best. But owning a house, like, to me personally, I don't think that's like my goal, unless it was an investment. And just to be locked in and to have that as something that you have to just always put money towards. And then at the end, maybe at the time when you want to sell it, it's not even worth as much as you paid for it because of what that time and period is. So you might be losing money, you might be gaining money, you might even have to lock in for another 3 years. So you have to really see it as like, if you're gonna have property, then you're gonna want to have that as like maybe to have others rent for you, rent it out for you, so then you have that money coming in. So that's what I think.
So what are the benefits of buying a house? Because sometimes people are forced to owe their landlord. Some people like the rent increases. So what do you think when it comes to renting and when it comes to owning? What are your thoughts on that?
I think like renting is definitely the easier option, but buying your house sets you up for retirement. So once you like have that house and you cash out, you can downsize and then you have all that money to play with for retirement. But I feel like buying a house is just such an impossible dream for young people now. So
For us personally, we're renting until we get stable jobs and then we're going to buy a house. But again, we've been doing this for 2 years. I think it's better to buy a house. And then if we like relocate during the job or something, just sell the house. And like it would be definitely better than renting.
And with renting now, have you seen a drastic increase when it comes to your rent? For example, dealing with your landlords, has it changed drastically, or is it more or less still the same as when you started renting?
Oh, definitely it's changed. Like I started renting in the last 10 years, it's definitely increased. It's almost 80%.
Yeah, it's a huge increase over the last couple of years.
If you have a good situation, I would say you're blessed and lucky, or keep that situation. Because if you had to transition out of that situation, like for say you had to move out or find somewhere else, it would be very difficult to find anywhere where you're living currently with that rate. It's like finding a house if you decide to sell your house. Where are you going to find a house locally where you sold for that amount? You're going to be spending more to get less. I guess that's the world. You give more and get less. But it's art of giving.
Pastor Justin, any more closing comments, Pastor?
Yes, I have one more comment from Chantel Kathleen that says like this. Who cares anymore? Buying a home is not a goal for so many people these days. Just take vacations and live life to the fullest. The goal is not to be house poor. And many that are watching, maybe you think like this as well. But as we're coming to the end of our show as well, Audrey, we have a poll. And do you want to share with them the results of that poll?
Yes, so we have concluded our poll for today. Buying a house, an impossible dream, or you just have to work hard for it. 8% say it's out of reach for many people. 92% say working hard, it's possible. It was very interesting when we saw the interviews, as a person had even said that, the market, if they wanted to sell their home, the market was they could even lose out. So for him personally, it was something that he was not going to be invested in. So again, it is your opinion here on Speak Your Mind. Continue to call us 877-785-8700.
And when we start seeing their mind or a lot of people's mindset to getting a house or to having their dream house, it's kind of split. I think Pastor Justin had said there are some who have different goals. It's not within their mindset. And maybe you're somebody who you see that word a lot, like it says right there, buying a house, an impossible dream. And maybe there are a lot of things that have become impossible for you. Maybe not even just buying a home. Maybe financially, it's been impossible for you to go forward. Maybe in your family, in your marriage, it's been impossible for you guys to get along. Maybe you and your health. One day you're sick of something, you go to the hospital, it leaves for a while, and then you get sick in another area. It's been impossible for you to go forward. Well, the Bible teaches us about a God who's a specialist in the impossible. In the Bible, in the book of Luke 1:37, which is also my mind, connected to what the Word of God says, for with God, nothing will be impossible. As I'm sure it's something you've already heard. With God, nothing will be impossible. Whatever your dream may be, whatever your aspiration might be, whatever your problem might be, maybe it's been impossible for you. But the moment you place it in God's hands, that idea of it being impossible, it becomes possible. You start seeing a solution. You start seeing a door that's never opened, open. You start seeing everything that's been bounded for so long be unchained, become loose. And that's the prayer that I want to make for you right now. I want to show you this testimony, this story of somebody who also broke free, who also had the impossible in their lives, but now they see the power of God in them, and the impossible has been made possible. And when we come back, we're going to be praying in your favor. So if you can, prepare now a cup of water, just like the one I have right here. When we come back, we're going to be praying in favor of all of you. We'll be right back.
I suffered from depression and suicidal thoughts when I was about 12 or 13 years old. The main reason was because my mom normally abused me either physically or emotionally. And that's something a child shouldn't really go through at that age. I seen symptoms in her as well. Our family, mainly her mom, which is my grandma, would put her down. So she lashed out on me and my older brother. So it was a generational curse. She had it, we had it, so it kind of continued. So I would take prescribed medication, over-the-counter medication, as well as walking in front of oncoming traffic, which was very difficult because shortly after my mom passed away, I was pregnant. I found out I was pregnant. So having these type of thoughts and being pregnant at the same time was putting my own daughter at risk. I do recall just wanting to throw myself into that traffic when I was about 8 months pregnant. I kept praying, asking God to guide me, because I couldn't seek help from family. I didn't have friends, and trying to find God and trying to find myself. But at the same time, the depression and the suicidal thoughts were keeping me behind because I was more leaning towards that and allowing those thoughts to keep me away from doing what God really wanted me to do, because he kept telling me I needed to go to church. So my neighbor, who was a regular member within the Universal Church, had invited me to attend the services. So when I did start coming to the church, I started noticing a difference in my life. But it took me a while to change because I was so attached to the lifestyle that I had. But thankfully, the pastors and the assistants within the Universal Church helped me get out of that comfort zone. I actually don't suffer from depression or suicidal thought. The first changes I've seen doing the chain of prayers, I noticed that I started to become more happier. I started believing in myself a lot more. I started seeing that I was rebuilding those relationships with my siblings and my own daughter, something I never had because my older brother, our relationship was severed. It was basically broken. And now me and him can actually have a full conversation without us bickering at each other. After doing the chain of prayers as well, I started coming mainly on the Fridays services, which was the night of deliverances. That's when I started seeing that I was being set free, because I started getting that confidence back, and believing in myself, of knowing that whatever problem goes around me, I can still overcome with the Holy Spirit. Is peace, it's joy, it's peace of mind, it's the helper, God's helper pretty much, on overcoming any obstacle, and assist us with any problems that we may be facing. The day I actually received the Holy Spirit, I ended up doing a purpose that week, because I was really, really tired. Like, I was fed up with my situations, and I told God, I'm done. I can't anymore. I'm giving you my life. I'm giving you everything. And when I came off the altar, I felt that peace. I felt that joy and the assurance that God was actually with me and guiding me and going to help me despite everything that I would face from that point on. I no longer suffer from depression. I no longer suffer from suicidal thoughts. I was delivered from all of that. And if it wasn't for God saving me, my kids would have been in a foster care, or they would have been homeless or without family or anyone to actually love them. And I just thank God for that, because it keeps me and my kids intact. And yeah, I don't suffer from that anymore. So these tears are not tears of pain, they're actually tears of joy. So so whoever is actually watching this, there is help out there. Seek your nearest universal church, and seek help. There, the pastor's assistants, the pastor's wives are actually willing to help you out.
We will go to our prayer. As you saw, that there was a way out, that impossible became possible. Let's get ready for our prayer. Let's talk to God.
Prepare a glass of water or get closer to your television screen. At this moment, we will have a special prayer to your name.
My Lord, there are people who listen, who watch us right now, who find themselves living a life that for so long has been impossible to be freed from. Problems, my Lord Jesus, that have been working to destroy this person, to even destroy not only their lives, but their faith, to the point where they don't believe that there's a way out. They don't believe that there's a remedy. They don't believe that there's a solution. There are people, my Lord, who have been so hurt, so betrayed, so deceived, that it's hard for them to believe that there is someone who can make the impossible possible. But that's why I pray and I determine that in Jesus' name, those who watch us be free right now, be set free from all the affliction, be set free in Jesus' name from all those problems in your marriage, from all the problems in your health. Be free right now. My God, the moment that they drink of this water, that this water become blessed, consecrated, that in the moment that they drink of this water, they receive strength, they receive faith, they receive disposition to leave their homes and to come here to see your power. That is how I determine them blessed. In Jesus Christ's name, amen. Amen. Let us drink of this water in Jesus' name. Amen. This Sunday at 10 o'clock in the morning, we invite you to our special gathering of faith and miracles. We're located here in Toronto, 2420 Dufferin Street. We're going to put the images right now on the screen. We're on the corner of Bowie Avenue and Dufferin. You can take the 29 bus, the 929 bus, and it will leave you right in front of our temple. We're also about a block and a half away from Eglinton Avenue. So there you have it. You can take a photo of it if you want. We're open every single day. Every single day, there's someone here ready to attend you. You want to change your life? If you want to see the impossible possible, so then we invite you to be here with us. 2420 Dufferin Street. If you have any questions, any doubt, feel free to text us on WhatsApp or call us. 437-233-9815. God bless. See you next time.
Join thousands of people every Sunday at 10 a.m. in one faith. Based on this word, again, I say to you that if two of you agree on earth concerning anything that they ask, it will be done for them by my Father in heaven. Matthew 18:19. Receive the 7 prayers.
I don't know how long I had that disease, but the way I found out is I had went to the doctor to have my annual physical. So they called me about the results and told me to get to the hospital because my sugar was so high that was threatening a stroke. So I participated in drinking the blessed water. Faithfully, I did it every day. I just continued in my faith and coming to the church and fighting against it.
Deliverance.
I was a victim of witchcraft. My mother sacrificed me
since I was young. I couldn't walk. I was paralyzed for a long time. I don't remember half of my life. I remember being in the hospital. It was King County Hospital. I remember that I had to learn how to walk. I had to learn how to write. I saw demons. People think that evil's not real. It is real. I went to a lot of churches, like 23 Christian church. And I never felt like I felt when I came to the Universal Church. But when I came to this ministry, from the very first time that I stepped through that door, I knew there was hope in this church.
Prosperity.
I had a business that was doing at one point rather well and went down substantially, and experienced just hard times trying to bring it up. I experienced also 3 deaths in my family. My mother, my father, my brother passed away. Then we had the recession, and I really never recovered from that. And it's still hard times, but since I've been coming to the church here, my business is starting to recoup. I see opportunities where my phone is ringing. I want this house built. I want this done. My business is starting to take off to another dimension.
Family.
I was about to separate with my husband, and during the time I was coming to church, I learned to forgive. And when I learned to forgive, I started working on my relationship with my husband. And when my husband never opened up to me, never told me what was going on with his life, until one day I got a knock on the front door, and it turned out to be the police. And I had to learn, okay, God, you are here. I learned through the church, through tribulations, you use your faith. And that's when I said, hey, that God is talking to me. This is a way I'm going to find a solution to my problem.
Love life.
And my husband and I were very happy, loving. Everybody in the neighborhood know us and always want their relationship to be like our relationship. Our relationship was an example that people wants to follow. Until one day I found out that my husband had someone else. And that turned me into a bitter and an angry person. Me surrendering my life to the Lord, I got baptized, was filled with the Holy Spirit. Now I have no hate. I'm not angry. I want to even save other people. Try to counsel other people who are going through problems in their marriage.
Encounter with God.
The suffering in my life, it started with me just basically having pain all over my body. And my mom took me to the doctor. They could not figure out what was wrong with me. I started having headaches, and the headaches get worse. It would go like from maybe a day, 2 days, 3 days. Then I started to have stomach pain. And I just felt like something, just like a brick drop on my head. And I had that headache. It was so bad. And I was sweating. I felt like I was going to pass out. I wake up one Sunday morning and I'm coming to church, and I'm like, I'm not leaving the church today without giving my life to God. I'm going to baptize today. And I came to church. Service is finished. I got baptized, and I never looked back.
Temple of Miracles, 2420 Dufferin Street, Toronto. 2420 Dufferin Street, Toronto. And every Universal Church countrywide.